how could leadership, when and if they need to, check in on work being accomplished, trusting that their team is accomplishing it, and just go, let me go check the dashboard, the key data, scorecard, what have you, where are certain projects, because that can also establish just a really nice trust between the two sides of like, okay, they're owning it, I don't need to check in. And also vice versa. I think that there should be very clear expectations set of, again, what people own and can do and move forward without getting it approved from leadership. Well, Dave Newell, here we are again. You just got back from a super cool trip.
I did. We had a family adventure in Barcelona in southern France. It was lovely. It's been a long time since I've journeyed overseas, and always fun to do something new, different. Got to see some amazing old churches and basilicas, and got to spend time eating paella and new food. I tried escargot for the first time, like genuine French escargot. I literally had to like pull the snail out of the shell, kind of a deal, which was a whole thing. That was an interesting experience. I had the kids try it. They survived. They didn't die, but they didn't enjoy. They didn't enjoy it for the most part. But I love trying new things. I think it's always fun to go to a new culture and just experience what it is, and it's such a beautiful culture, and how people gather around a center and drink coffee in the afternoon, and they're just chatting away. And like, man, it's very grounding and centering to have this kind of communal focused group. Had a
Yeah.
fantastic time.
Good. Yeah, no, absolutely. I love going to Europe and definitely love going to different cultures around the world and experiencing something outside of our circumstance. The escargot thing, as a vegetarian, I
Yeah.
can't imagine. However, as I was thinking that when you said that, I did try haggis when we were in Scotland because,
Ah,
guess you gotta.
you just
Um,
have to. Yeah.
Not gonna say it was the highlight of my trip, but I did it.
No, I feel it's been a long time since I've been around haggis. And just the like same thing with escargot, just the thought of like I'm literally pulling a snail out of its shell and then eat, and you're like, this something about this seems really like just fundamentally not okay. And the sauce that it's in and whatever is just like really good. It was like this is actually other if you can get over the texture, if you can kind of get over the thought of like this is what I'm eating, it's honestly very flavorful and was very well done. Yeah, it's the psychology maybe of eating a snail and pulling it out of its shell that's the hard part.
Yeah, absolutely. Listeners, if you're a vegan, I'm so sorry that we're starting the episode off with this, but if you're not, let us know if you like escargot.
Yeah, or haggis, or
Or
what's
haggis.
something you've tried recently that challenged your taste buds?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back to another episode of Business Velocity. We're very excited to have you with us. Thank you for joining. We are now on episode 4, I believe, and
Here we go.
having a good time so far. This season, listeners, for those of you who maybe haven't caught up this season or are listening to us for the first time, what we're going to do is every episode we present a basically a case study, a problem set, if you will, that a pretend company based off of very real companies is experiencing. And the two of us kind of break it down and discuss like what would we do to help them with the problems and the issues that they're facing. And we hope that by talking about these fake but based on real companies, that it will help inspire you with the issues that you're facing if you are a business leader or a manager listening to this. So,
Mhm.
without further ado, Dave, I'm going to give you the problem set for today. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, today's company is called Bright Path Collective. They
Ooh,
are a branding and marketing agency. They have 18 employees, about 3.8 million in annual revenue, so a little under 4 million in annual revenue, and they're only about 5 years into business. So
wow.
it's still relatively pretty new. They have what I would say is still a smallish team of about 20 people. And one of the goals that they've mentioned is that they want a team that takes ownership. And the leader, the CEO, says, I don't want to be the bottleneck anymore.
Mhm.
But they are experiencing a lot of people on the team not taking ownership, a lot of things being passed up the chain, a lot of unclear situations and like who's supposed to be owning this. Roles are pretty vague. They have some success metrics that are kind of unclear or they change a lot. And their leaders at the company jump in to fix things too often. And they complain about like people just being too dependent on them. And they also say that they can't hold people accountable for work that doesn't feel clearly designed or delegated. So basically, this one is all about trying to get people to take ownership of their work and how to hold a team accountable. So I'll stop there and you ask me any questions you have about this
Mm.
circumstance.
Yeah, well, and we should say too that I've never heard this before. This is new. So we're reacting in real time, much like we would in a client scenario. And it's really truly about kind of processing out loud what the problem is. And what we're trying to do here is create some sense for you all as listeners of like, okay, how do you think through some of these things? What might you be looking for? What are you listening for? So honestly, I've heard a similar story so many times. I don't know if I'm going to start with questions. I think I'm going to start with like there's probably 3 to 4 things that I heard in what you said that are just interesting things to poke at in terms of categorizing the problem set that you put in front of me.
Okay.
Often when I hear a lack of accountability or there's bottlenecks, that is a lagging indicator. That is the end of the line. And there's typically kind of 3 or 4 things that lead to a lack of accountability. Number one in my mind is do we have, well, it's probably a reactive culture, meaning we've built our systems and structures based on growth and reaction, meaning, hey, can you take this on? Hey, this new client thing came down. Can you do it? And now we've built a pattern and a system and a set of processes that is based on responsiveness versus we designed it this way to scale, to grow, especially in an agency when you're dealing with so many kind of client needs and particular situations on a regular basis. Any professional service agencies, it is very normal to be reactive. It's a normal thing. So I hear reactiveness in that from a design. Number two, you mentioned it pretty outright, but roles and responsibilities, kind of who's that is often then a symptom of reactiveness is like, well, who's responsible for what? We've kind of been flying around and solving things, etc. Number three, I would look at is what is the core business model? Like, what do we actually do? And what do we want to do? And are we designed to do that thing? If you don't have those 3 things, if you aren't kind of designing your structure and systems and how you operate, if you aren't clear on roles and who owns what, and if you aren't super locked in and clear on what do we actually do and what do we not do from a business model perspective, if those 3 things aren't clear, you just can't have accountability. It's not a thing, right? Otherwise, it's what mood is Hannah in today or what mood is Dave in today in terms of accountability? Like how strict are you going to be? It becomes personal versus the system version of accountability. Those are the things that I heard in that. I'm curious, what did you hear as you were reading? What came to mind for you?
Yeah, I think I would want to dig into what are the roles of the company and what have they established each of them owns. Often with a company that's only 5 years old, to your point, you've kind of organically grown your systems, but whoever was growing them might be unclear. You might have asked your account coordinator to develop a process around something because there was no one else to develop it. But then do they still own adjusting and updating that process? Who do they need to communicate to when processes do update or change? Or does that now fall to a new leadership person that you've hired because you had the revenue to hire them? And sometimes I think those wires can get crossed. I definitely have experienced where like leaders feel like they're babysitting and team members feel like they're being micromanaged. And how can you kind of separate those two things out and create trust between the two sides? So, again, clarifying leaders, you own this, team members, you own that, and doing it in a way that involves everybody in that conversation. So, like, literally, we're all on the same page now, and then holding ourselves accountable to the new things that we have said that we own. Sometimes it's this sort of unspoken, well, are you doing that or am I supposed to send you updates or not on this thing? And so my brain, I love the weeds. I think the weeds matter. So I go down into like, tell me about your day to day and tell me about moments that slow you down. Is it waiting on somebody for approval? Is it a lack of clarity around whether you can move forward or not? Things like that. and then trying to fix those things, and that all kind of like rolls up. And it can also be affected from the top down, which I would imagine, would maybe be more of your approach as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, whichever end you start from in terms of looking at the problem is totally fine. As long as you're looking at the problem and you look at both ends eventually, right? I think is important. And it's interesting. I had a conversation with a client today, and I think maybe another factor when you're in a reactive and scaling environment. I mean, to your point, you said it was, 3.8 million in 5 years for an agency. That's fast. That's a fast growth agency. You've done a lot of things really quickly,
Yeah.
right? Is often what happens is your really competent, high A player, A performers get stuff thrown on them and you overcompensate for the underperformers and they get less stuff and you kind of tolerate what they do, etc. So you start to see all these symptoms show up of your highest performers are overwhelmed because they have so much stuff that they've taken on because they're good at it, because they should take it on because they're good.
Yeah.
But then you often have underperformers who can hide and get away from things or just not pull their weight. If you think about kind of distribution of, sending distribution of responsibility and who's good at what and who's not good at what. If you're not organized in that category, your A players end up taking everything on. And,
Hmm.
you end up being a little bit bloated generally.
Well, and you kind of create this circumstance where rescuing each other is the norm,
Mm,
but that feels super unscalable and unhealthy to just constantly be figuring out, well, this person, their workload is super, it fluctuates all the time, or this person is constantly overloaded. How can we help them? Rather than, well, if they're overloaded and somebody else is underloaded, then do we need two full-time people in whichever roles that we're talking about? Is this a situation where unfortunately we have to move someone to part-time and then the other role needs a specialist to support them? I think that there are also in this circumstances a lot of very sensitive, uncomfortable conversations that you have to have that I think leaders often, especially if they've grown really fast with a core team of A players, are really scared to have.
mm.
And scared
Well,
to change the status quo because it can be intimidating.
yeah. I mean, honestly, you run into an identity crisis at some point in time. Anytime you try to systematize and scale and
Yeah.
do something more structured, one of the challenges, even for myself in our own journey, has been, yeah, but I've always been the one to do that. Like your social equity gets wrapped up in the things that you do, right? Like you get known by, yeah, but I'm the person that does that, right? Like I'm the person that solves a problem. I'm the fixer. I'm the whatever. Especially, you mentioned at the end there, the CEO or the owners becoming the bottlenecks and jumping in and solving problems. It's like, yeah, that's really normal because most of the time that's their identity. That's what got them to where they, currently are.
Mhm.
And if that's the only way that they operate, it'll only be as good as they have the capacity to do, right? Like if we can't take things off of their plate, the truth is it often gets better when they let it go because somebody's thinking about that more often, more frequently, more specifically, and has more talent to do that one specific thing,
Mhm.
right? Maybe I'll introduce an exercise here for leaders. We've likely talked about this on previous podcasts. I'm sure we have, but always a healthy thing to think about, which is the DAD exercise: delegate, automate, delete. Right? It's a way to think about, okay, as an owner, what do I get off my plate? But a nuance with that is to think through often administrative and operational things. Like as a leader, your job is to elevate yourself into strategic leadership. That's the whole point. Like, what's the one thing that you get to and can do that pretty much nobody else in the organization gets to do, which is the strategic leadership for the organization. So if you're in the weeds doing administrative and operational things, or you're getting sucked into admin work, it's like that's not the highest and best use of what you can do for the organization. You're actually handcuffing the growth of the company, and it ends up being a little bit of a crutch, right? So identifying, okay, well, what administrative and operational responsibilities am I taking on, and what's the loss if I do that, right? Like if, the other maybe side part of that from an identity perspective, I love the Peter Block quote. He says, if we can't say no, our yes means nothing. And I love that quote. And it usually follows it with the question of what's the no that you've been postponing?
Hmm.
Such a lovely question and mean at the same time,
Hmm.
because we all have that thing that we're thinking of, yep, I gotta get out of that. I gotta stop doing that. It's like, well, yeah, your team notices that as well. And so
Hmm.
they're going to adopt that culture, right? The
Hmm.
culture has then become, hey, everybody fly around and do anything just to make sure that it happens. But that has its limits, that has its edges.
I'd be curious with this company, and this wasn't fully defined in the problem set that I put together, but what they use to track the work that's being done and how it's delivered to leadership, like via some kind of dashboard. So this is again thinking operationally and sort of like process wise, but how could leadership, when and if they need to, check in on work being accomplished, trusting that their team is accomplishing it, and just go, let me go check the dashboard, the key data, scorecard, what have you, where are certain projects? Because that can also establish just a really nice trust between the two sides of like, okay, they're owning it. I don't need to check in. And also vice versa. I think that there should be very clear expectations set of, again, what people own and can do and move forward without getting it approved from leadership. And that piece is empowering your team to own things and honestly like ongoing training. I think with companies that maybe are like 5 years old, again, like, yeah, they had a bunch of A players who were super competent at the beginning, but they might be hitting the roof or ceiling of their knowledge in certain areas. Also, if it's a digital marketing agency, tech and AI and things are changing all the time. Well, are you setting aside time for them to be more educated on current practices, current systems, and softwares? Again, so they can fully own them. So I think also that would play into benefiting this team in my mind. Just as you were speaking, it just kind of came to mind like how are they checking in on each other without having to talk about it? Because oftentimes that can just create like a slow moment as well, trusting everybody's in their lanes, but like if I need to go check on someone, especially a remote team, I don't need to go like open their door and stare at them. I need to like see the reports being stacked up and piled in front of us or something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, to come back to the what they would have labeled, or at least what the case study labeled as the core problem, which was accountability, and kind of offloading some of those things. I think we've talked about it enough here, but you can't have accountability without a structure. A lack of accountability is a lagging indicator. It's the end of the story. For if you're in your own organization and you hear yourself saying, man, like we just don't have any accountability here. That's the end. It's to walk backwards then and say, well, do we have the systems in place? Do we have the clarity of role? Do we have kind of a proactive structure? Are we measuring and holding dashboards and actually talking about those things and holding people to account on their KPIs, or whatever tools you might be using? Are we doing those things? And if you're not going to have accountability. That's not how it works. You can't just say, man, we need to hold each other more accountable so it magically appears. It's not how accountability works, right?
Yeah.
It's usually the end result. If you lack it, it's because the system is perfectly designed to produce the results that it's producing. It's perfectly designed to not be accountable.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Yeah.
kind of to maybe wrap us out here and reflect on some of the things we would suggest to this client, documenting your core process and then who owns what in that process, which is tied to documenting the core roles in your business and what do each of those roles own, making sure that that is clearly communicated to your team and avoiding the knee-jerk reaction of rescuing them, establishing
Mhm.
ownership. What touch points do you need and what touch points do you not need as a leader? Telling the team that, and then having some kind of dashboard or, monthly or weekly check-in that just reports up so that you're not slowing down any kind of progress. And I think also, baking into the values and behaviors, ownership and holding each other accountable to owning the things that you establish. But that comes from, yeah, communication, clarity, and alignment for sure. Anything
Yeah,
else you would add?
I think it's good. I think it's good. I mean, maybe just a question to ask yourself and a question to ask ourselves, right? Of have we built the right structures to have accountability in our organization? Are we accountable to getting stuff done?
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, Bright Path Collective, we wish you well.
All the
And
best.
listeners, sorry, go ahead.
All the best, fake company.
All the best. And listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another one. We will see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us on Business Velocity. Today's insights are just the beginning of enhancing your business's momentum. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also explore our framework at theevolveddifference.com. And remember, the time is now to take these strategies and apply your learning and achieve velocity. See you next time.